All right. Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Noah, and this is Brendan, and we are back with the MedCat podcast inside the medical journey. And we're so happy to be here today. And again, this podcast is really just our experiences along with other people's experiences about what actually is the journey to healthcare, whether that's going to MD or PA or nursing, whatever you're doing in healthcare. We kind of want to give the experiences that we had. We're obviously going to invite other people on, different clubs, just kind of talk about what it's actually like. Because a lot of times in the healthcare journey, you hear a million different things and you don't know what's true, what's not true. So we really just want to give the unscripted truth about what it is, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the amazing stuff that comes with it. So that's the main point of this podcast. We're super excited to be here today. The main point of the episode for today is going to be talking about that first day of school, which I know for you seems like a long time ago.
Get out of here. Whatever.
I think 8.
All right.
It should be 20 years.
Get out of here.
Only 8 years for Brendan, 4 years for me, but it seems like a long time. So we're really excited to talk about it. It was obviously a different experience for both of us because I had the COVID time when everything was kind of shut down. You had a non-COVID. So we definitely had different experiences, but I bet we had some of the similar experiences as well. But before we dive into that, we kind of want to do the weekly updates. So Brendan, any new stuff with you going on?
Yeah, let's do it. This week was actually the first interview was yesterday.
Nice.
So it was a very long but fun. It was an exciting day where essentially it was like, 7 a.m. start time. Then the overview, they had a couple of one-on-one interviews with program director, assistant program director, some of the residents. And then you had various PowerPoints that you listened to and got to see. And we ended up we were able to see their like new and didactics. So we saw what teaching looked like.
Nice.
And, at the end of the day, it was kind of an open Q&A with the residents to see what's the program really like? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? So it was overall a really positive experience. And at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I was not even I was sitting in a chair in my room for the entire time. It was over soon. But to think that some of these interviews are going to be 2-day interviews.
Yeah.
Peds one day, Peds neuro the other day. It's gonna get a little fatiguing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I've got 2 months of just this, which is really quite nice. And then on the side, I've got a sleep medicine rotation that I'm doing. And, Noah, you and I both did research in a sleep med lab, essentially. And so we got to see, there's a lot of similarities that I'm seeing in what I'm doing now, whether it's actigraphy, sleep studies, things like that, I have some familiarity with. So the rotation is more of it really is an elective rotation, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then, you and I both have the commonality of experiencing homecoming weekends.
Yeah.
And then I'll slip that back over to you for your updates.
Yeah. Before I dive into homecoming, which was so much fun, I'll kind of just give a little academic update. So yeah, we just finished MSK, which talk about being exhausting. That block was very tiring. There was a lot of memorizing, a lot of different disease processes. And it was definitely tough at times. Like there was some nights that I was like, oh my gosh, I should have taken a gap year, but also it was so much fun. And I feel like I've grown so much over the past 3 months in med school, and I have learned so much information, which is awesome. And one thing that I liked about MSK that I didn't think I was going to like coming in was the anatomy lab. Coming in, I didn't think I would like anatomy because I never really liked surgery, but I also have never had experience with surgery. But when we were dissecting the cadaver, it was so cool to see all the inner workings of the human body. And if one thing is blocked, how that can affect everything down below, type of thing. So I really enjoyed that. And overall, it was a really good block. It was tough, but that's kind of the point. You get a lot of information and you just kind of try to learn as much as you can. But with homecoming, yeah, it was so much fun. I had a lot of buddies come down for the weekend that graduated last year. The game was sadly not as close as I wanted. I had a 3-leg parlay. I had Arizona winning, ouch, which did not hit, obviously. I had Iowa winning, so my two teams both lost. Michigan State beat us. And then I think I had USC winning, and they somehow lost to Maryland. So it's good that all 3 of them didn't hit. It's not like 2 hit, one didn't hit.
God, that just tells you the dangers of gambling.
Yes, sir. But the thing is, if you lose one weekend, you're going to win the next weekend. So,
okay.
I'll be back at it on Saturday.
Okay.
I'll lock it on Saturday.
All right. I'm glad I don't participate in those events.
Yeah. And yeah, it was really fun. It was fun to spend time with them, but then reality definitely hit on Monday and we started neuro. So it was good. But this week has definitely been busy. But yeah, it's all good. All good. All good stuff. Let's do it. So one thing Well, you got to put a Bubby's thing.
Oh my God, we had this. Noah and I had this conversation. Or to be completely honest, our earlier podcast this morning got cut off.
Yeah.
But Noah and I were in a heated discussion of Bubby's Bagels. And for the undergraduate students, you may or may not know about Bubby's.
I didn't know about it until last year. So.
Right. Well, it's because they moved up on River last year originally. So
what were they at initially?
Bubby's Bagels has been around for a few years now.
Okay.
And they were initially off of Wilmont and Speedway. And so for any undergrad, like that's, maybe like a 15-minute drive.
Yeah.
So most undergrads don't venture to the east side of town. And so I didn't discover it until probably a year and a half ago when I was at the Wilmot clinics for the peds rotation. And, this bagel is like New York style bagel. It is, in my opinion, biased opinion, I think it's phenomenal. I think it beats Brugger's. I don't know if you experienced Bagel Talk.
I guess not.
Oh my!
I guess not.
Bagel Talk was like it was in the Park Student Union. I know it's not called the Park Student Union anymore.
You're definitely aging yourself.
I know.
In like the 90s.
No, stop. This was 2017. Okay. No, there was Bagel Talk, and Bagel Talk was solid. It was like the breakfast bagel place you had on your meal card or whatever it was. And, you go grab your bagel, solid.
Yeah.
And then I upgraded to Brugger's bagels. Brugger's, I was like, these are good bagels. These are fine. They make them in-house. They're great. And then I experienced Bubby's, and I was like, this is a game changer. It is more expensive. I'll give you that, Noah. But in my opinion, it is just quality bagel and quality egg. The egg is soft. It's not runny. Whereas like Brugger's bagels, like they're crunchy. And like, I'm not a crunchy egg type of guy. And I know you had your experience.
Yeah. So I'll briefly just share, like, I honestly don't see the difference. Like if you put two bagels in front of me, right? One is like, I don't know the name of the company, but like you buy it at Safeway. It's like a bag of 6 of them. If you put that bagel on the left and you put Bubby's, what a weird name too. Okay. If you put Bubby's on the right and I close my eyes, and you should do this because maybe you would not know what is the right one. I would be like, the one that actually Bubby's tastes the same as Safeway. I just honestly don't see the difference. And I've had this discussion with multiple people and they also think I'm crazy. But yeah, I spent like $8. I've only been one time, but I spent $8 and I just wasn't as impressed.
Okay.
So maybe I got to give it another shot.
You're allowed to have differences in your tastes. That's fine. But do not insult Bubby like that. Bubby, my bad. No, Bubby, I don't know whose grandmother Bubby is. But Bubby's the grandmother. Like any sort of like East Coast, like if any East Coast Jewish family calls their grandmother Bubby. Like that's just what.
Okay, so that makes sense.
There are many Bubbies on Earth, but there's only one Bubbies.
Okay.
Anyways, that's the side talk. Okay, now we can actually get into the So it's gonna be a longer episode.
You're good. Okay, so as we talked about, the main point of this episode is kind of first day of school. So there's a lot of different aspects to that first day, right? You have like the academic side, you have like the social side, like you're trying to meet people, especially at a school like U of A. You have like 10,000 incoming freshmen. You have like 30,000 people that are sophomores, juniors, seniors. So there's a lot of people. And then you have like the personal side of things. So I think what I want to hear from you, Brendan, is maybe the academic side. What did you experience from an academic perspective on that first day of school?
Yeah, I'll be completely frank. It's incredibly overwhelming. It is the feeling of your step, regardless of how large your high school was, it's not 10,000 kids, not kids, young adults. And so coming the first day of school, I had walked my classes the day before. I hardly understood what my schedule was. I remember going to orientation.
Yeah.
And for us, orientation was in person the month before school started.
Wow. Okay.
And so you go to orientation and you have your major. So I was a physiology major. And you go to your advice. No, actually, it wasn't even my advisor. Someone just handed me a piece of paper and said, hey, here's your schedule. If you want to go change it, go to the ILC and go change it. There's students there to help you. In my head, I'm like, well, what am I even doing? Like, did my transfer credits go over? Like, Chem 151. What is like? I was in English 101. Why am I in this class?
Yeah.
What's going on? And I was in my head, I'm thinking like something's off. I understood something off. So even like before the first day of school, I'd gone in and talked to these students and I was like, hey, like I have transfer credits, but I don't see it. They're like, don't worry about it. What you're going to do first day of school, you're going to go back to your major advisor. And so you go back to your major advisor. And basically I had like a one-on-one meeting at first. And I was like, hey, like, I just don't understand what's going on. And her name was Andrea Caffrey. And Andrea was someone who I developed a very strong relationship with. I mean, you probably know Andrea.
Yeah, I think I may have had her for a little bit.
Yeah, Andrea was wonderful.
Yeah.
And so she was able to kind of meet with me one-on-one. She brought my transfer credits in. We changed a lot of classes around. I had, I think, initially 3 or 4 gen ed classes at first semester. And I was like, I don't want that many at the beginning. Like, I want to spread, this is going to be very personal dependent, but like I wanted to spread out my gen ed classes. Yeah. It was like, instead of having a ridiculously simplified schedule my first semester, I wanted it to be moderately challenging. Yeah. And that means that my junior year, I still had gen ed. It's not a lighter. Exactly. Makes sense. And so, Andrea helped me with that. She brought in, instead of English 101, I went into English 109. So it's like, instead of taking 2 semesters of English, I just had to take my 1. None of that would have been possible unless I had taken my own time to meet with Andrea. Yeah. Andrea's not going to reach out to me and say, hey, I noticed this, and this is different. Let's meet. No, it takes you as a student to kind of be a little proactive here and meet with your academic advisor. Yeah. And before I switch over, I'm also going to like kind of pivot a little bit and talk about the other advisors you have on your first day of school. Yeah. If you're part of whether it's College of Science, actually, it doesn't even matter what college you're a part of. You have a pre-health advisor on top of your major advisor. And so this advisor, which I didn't come to realize until probably my sophomore or junior year, unfortunately, is that this advisor is really geared towards preparing you holistically for what graduate school is going to look like. And that could be whether it's PA school and like an MDDO program, whether it's, nursing school, or what am I forgetting? Even like, like a PhD of sorts. Yeah. Any sort of graduate school. They're giving like the background information of what am I going to need to then go do that. And so, I didn't meet with them until my sophomore year, but what they had eventually discussed with me was, oh, here's your requirements for what the College of Medicine requires. Like, here's what the med schools need. The med schools, they need physics, they need blah, blah, blah. And a lot of it is a parallel to what your major is requiring. Yeah. Say, for example, like your passion is music. And so you're a music major, you're a theater film, whatever it is. You're not going to be taking the prereqs automatically if you wanted to then pursue medical school or graduate school, health science graduate school. And so the nice thing about the pre-health advisors is that they kind of bring everything together. They tell you what you're doing with your major. So, let's say film, they have you like, okay, your film major is this. Here's what you need to take to apply to graduate school. So then you can start to integrate the two. Yeah. And between those two advisors, you can develop, and we absolutely recommend having a 4-year plan. Yeah. Totally. And a 4-year plan can be incredibly daunting. And I'm kind of going, not on a tangent yet, but I'm talking. No,
it's a good tangent.
But it's because the first, and we say first day, but really we mean the first couple of weeks. Yeah. It's such an important time because it can very much turn that excess stress and kind of contain it a little. Yeah. You give yourself a plan. And so what this 4-year plan was, and this is something I did with Andrea, my physio advisor, I think probably within the first month of school, was I stopped in and I was like, hey, like things have started to get into the groove, but that's just this semester. What am I doing the rest of the 3.5 semesters that I'm going to be here? Yeah. And so she sat me down, she calmed me down. I was a little frantic. And I didn't know what I didn't know what I was doing yet. Yeah. And so she sat me down and we had a semester by semester plan of like, okay, here are the 2 to 3 physio or STEM related classes you need to take to graduate with a physio major. Yeah. And again, it's not to get to med school, which, where we are now, it's to graduate with physio. Yeah. And so I was able to use that as like my foundation before adding in kind of my elective credits, my minors, my research stuff. So it gave me that course baseline that I then was able to really just go semester to semester and go off of. And folks, I know I talked a lot, but if you have anything, you had a very different experience. Yeah. With COVID, but I just find so much value in the first month of school to really set you on a nice path. No, totally. And I think the advisor thing is so huge because it can be very intimidating, especially because I think the biggest difference between high school and college, whether it's, studying, whether it's like getting advice on what classes to take or like getting advice on how to like do assignments, is you have to be proactive because there's so many more kids in college than you had at your high school. And although we would love for the advisor to email like every week, be like, hey, how are you doing? They just don't have time for that because they maybe have 1,000 kids that they're advising. So
they want to help you, and that's their job, is to help you, but you have to be proactive in reaching out. So I think that's an amazing point. The other thing I was going to mention is that it's also okay if you don't know what you want to do that first day. I think the most popular major at U of A is undecided, which means there's so many kids out there that do not know what they want to do. And both of us wanted to do physio, so we were not in this boat, but I've talked with a lot of people that were undecided, and they were basically like kind of like scared, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, am I going to be behind if I choose to do chemistry, if I choose to do like music? And like, they're not going to be behind. You can honestly be undecided for like a year and a half and still graduate on time, because in that time, you're going to be taking your gen eds. You're going to be taking the Chem 151s, which if you want to do anything pre-health, you're going to have to take that. So it's okay to be undecided. And I think that's something that's huge to point out. Don't feel like you're alone in that. It's the most popular major.
No, and I'll give a personal connection to that. Chloe.
Yeah.
My partner, Chloe, was an undecided major until her junior year.
And she graduated.
And she graduated just fine.
Yep.
She's a speech language pathologist.
Exactly.
Got into a very nice graduate school. So, yeah. And she did well. And she did her minor her first 2 years.
Yeah.
And she additionally completed most of her general education courses. So then when it came time to junior year, she did buckle down a little bit more, but then she was able to take all the credits she needed, and she graduated on time with ease too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome. And I think with that, there's so much we could talk about academics, but another big part of that, first few weeks is like the social aspect and like trying to get involved in some clubs, which connects with the social aspect. And both Brendan and I had very different experiences with this, because I had the COVID experience, you had the non-COVID experience. But I think from my experiences and what I've seen in other students that have gone to U of A or like whatever college you go to, is that it is so critical to get involved in a few clubs if you can. And it doesn't have to be like day one. Like, you should focus on figuring out how to get to the student union, figuring out how to eat, figuring out where you're going to sleep, like how you're going to go to bed, stuff like that. But once you figure out like that basic stuff, I think it is huge to get involved in some clubs, whether that's a pre-health club. It could just be like an ultimate frisbee club, because when you do those things, you're going to meet people. They can help you out, because everyone's in the same boat at the end of the day. There's 10,000 other freshmen that are in the same exact boat, and they're probably a little timid and scared too. Even if they don't show it down deep, they're probably a little scared. And I at least found that those first few weeks were very tough for me, because it was COVID, coming from out of state. I didn't know anyone, but I was able to get involved in like one club that met on Zoom like once a week. And although I couldn't actually see those people, I still was able to be like, okay, there's a lot of other kids that are going through the same thing as me. I was able to figure out that I had the same classes with them, and then everything else clicked after that. But I think getting involved in a few clubs on top of the academics is huge.
Yeah. And I think it's doable too.
Yeah.
And I think too, if you ask, this will be in hindsight for most people, but if you ask a junior or senior how they felt about their first month or two of school, I don't think they had a great time. It is so hard because it's just an adjustment. Yeah. Living alone for the first time. Maybe you're away from family for the first time, or, whatever the circumstance may be, it's an adjustment.
Yeah.
And so doing your academics and social on top of, probably the most important thing is balancing yourself and getting acclimated to school. And like you said, it's dorm, it's food, it's sleep. Those are the core things that you have to have down us, for sure. But I think the only other thing socially that maybe I wanted to add is that there's so many different ways to go about doing these social things. Yeah. And so again, no, you and I have very different experiences, but at the U of A now we have something called Dash at the Rec. It's either Bash at the Rec or Meet Me at the Rec.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I think it's Bash
at the Rec.
Yeah.
But essentially it's this opportunity that happens at the beginning of each year where you are able to go to, it's either Bear Down Field or the field right next to the rec center.
Yeah.
And there's just clubs everywhere.
Awesome.
Everyone's got tents, tables, games. It's whatever. And I remember going as a freshman, and I went with my roommate. And we just walked around. We walked around, saw the different clubs, and we didn't even join any clubs at that moment, but it put in our eyes and put in our heads of this is what's available.
Yep.
And so then, after the first couple of weeks when we were able to get it kind of steadiness and flow to our school, then we both decided, okay, we're ready for some clubs now.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I ended up having ambassadors. Was I saw them at the rec, and I was like, this is a cool club. I want to do this. Made sure that I was able to kind of get myself going. And then I applied, and that was Ambassadors was what launched my social thing. And you same with you in the pre-health thing, where it's like all you have to do is it's one club. Yeah, that's all it takes.
It's the snowball effect for sure. And I think I didn't have the Bachelor of the Rec as a freshman. I wish I would have. But over the past 3 years, I really saw like how big that is. And any freshman coming in, I know that first like few nights, because I think it's before school even starts. So it's like Sunday night beforehand. That can be so intimidating because you may have a roommate, but usually it's only going to be maybe you and one other person that you somewhat know, but you could have just met them like 2 days before that. And it's intimidating to walk all the way to the rec and like see all these people. But I promise you, if you do that, it's only going to be positive. You may meet someone that has the same class as you, and you can, walk with them to class the next day. You may find a club like Ambassadors that totally shapes your whole college life. So as a freshman, please, please, please go to Bachelor of the Rec because it is so cool. They have music, they have food. It's really just an amazing time. And it's one of the best things U of A does to kind of introduce freshmen to the college life, which is tough, but please know that you're not alone. There's so many other kids going through the same thing.
Right. And I think the only other thing that I'll add to kind of the social component before we kind of wrap up with the personal items is that also, if you're in a dorm, really embrace it. That is a new experience.
It's honestly not that bad. I thought it was going to be bad, but it's kind of fun.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I had a great dorm experience. Yeah. I was at Arbol de la Vida.
Well, okay, that's a nice one.
It was a nice dorm. It was the honors college dorm. And I guess, right, I continued to age myself. There was no honors village. But in the honors college dorm, though, it was me and my roommate, who I loosely knew.
Yeah.
And, a bunch of guys. And we were all sorts of different majors. And we would have like this open door policy where my roommate and I, we loved Mario Baseball. Mario Super Sluggers was our thing. And I had brought my GameCube down. And again, aging myself. I don't know if you all are going to know what a GameCube is.
Yeah, I've never seen that in my life.
Get out of here. Okay, whatever. Your equivalent to like the Wii is my GameCube. Okay, so we had the GameCube, we brought it down, and we just had an open door. We would play, and door would be open. People would come in, bring their chairs, and we'd have these like baseball tournaments. And awesome. We chose not to do Greek life, and so our evenings and our nighttime after we were done studying, after we ate, we came back, and we lit it up. Like we were just like, all right, let's play. And that's how we met so many of our hallmates.
Yep.
And got honestly really good at the GameCube too. We ended up playing, we played Melee. We were playing what else? Super Mario Strikers. And again, like I'm nerding out, but it was that's nice. I loved it. Like video games for me, it was such a unifying thing for us. I had other hallmates on different floors who had like game nights, they did karaoke nights, or they just kind of met together and studied together. So really embrace. We're recommending really embrace the dorm life if you're in the dorm life.
Yeah.
And again, if you're not, that's okay too.
Yeah. And I think the biggest point of this whole episode is yes, academics are huge and you want to do well academically, but what college is really about is the people that you meet along the way. And your face lit up when you talked about that. And I bet you can talk about that all day long, way more than Chem 151 or a class you took, or bio, OChem, or whatever you take. Those are the memories, playing GameCube and stuff like that you really take with you. And I think for me, my dorm life was very different, obviously, because it was COVID. We couldn't have anyone else in our room. We had to have masks on, which is looking back, it was tough, but also it's what it was. And that's why meeting people on the clubs was so big. And then once I got into that, kind of for me, honestly, my sophomore year was really my freshman year because I was able to go to the basketball games and meet people, go to the football games and meet people, go to clubs, have people in my room, stuff like that. So I was kind of 1 year delayed, but it was still an amazing time. Do you have any other experiences with personal life that you wanted to hit on?
I think the biggest, just we, with the last couple of minutes we have, the biggest thing that I wanted to note was just really the importance of a work-life harmony. Not even to say balance, because balance is going to be relative to anybody. But really understanding that college is going to be challenging in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you're a brainiac and maybe the academics aren't challenging, or maybe you're a social butterfly and the social aspect isn't challenging. But somewhere along the lines, you're going to run into some challenges with college, and that is to be expected. And in my experience, it was having a strong social foundation. But in order to have that, I had to make sure that I was taking care of myself first.
Yeah.
So I remember the first couple of weeks of school, I wasn't sleeping. I was hanging out with friends late. I was waking up early for class. And eventually I got to a point where I was burning out early. It catches up with you. It does. It absolutely catches up with you. You know, I was getting sick because I just wasn't eating well and taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And so it was maybe halfway through my freshman year where I was like, okay, I need to like not reinvent the wheel, but you kind of just reorganize how it's doing a little bit. Yeah. So, you know, I set myself a bedtime. I woke up, I was a little more active and ate more healthy. I didn't go to Denny's every day. You know, thankfully I started treating my body better, feeling better. And then, you know, made sure that everything else was following in that path. So that's just the last thing that I wanted to know.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah. And one quick thing on that, my uncle, he told me like one thing before I came to college, and it's like the triangle thing. So usually in college, you can have like, there's three things, right? There's like sleep, there's like academics, and there's like a social life. And it's very tough to do all three of those things incredibly successfully. Like if you do well academically, maybe you don't sleep as much. If you have a good social life, maybe academics are not as good. But as much as you can, if you can like hit all three of those things somewhat well, and it's not going to be the same for everyone. Some people are going to have heavy academics, not as much social, but they still get good sleep. But if you can hit all three of those as best as you can, I think from both of our experiences, it worked out very well.
Yeah. And I think that we can both confidently say that you can do all three and you can do it really well.
Yeah. You just have to have that balance, which is the biggest thing. And that's tough to find. But as you go, and don't feel like you got to figure it out in one day. You have 4 years to figure it out. It's a long journey, but it doesn't go by fast. But I do know that we are getting to the end of the episode. So as always, if you guys like have any feedback for the episodes, please let us know. We love doing these. Each episode's going to be a different topic. So today was first day of school. We're going to be talking about the MCAT one day, getting involved in research. And we're going to have other people come on and share their experiences, because although we do have a lot of experiences, we know that we have like less than 1% of what we could be talking about. So that's why we want to invite on as many people as possible and really get the full perspective on what it's like to go into healthcare.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually, as we were talking, I was just thinking, I was like, what if we just had short little bios of people coming on the episode? You know, let them give a solo episode. I love that. Minutes, like their experience and things like that.
Yeah,
that can give you all different perspectives.
Exactly.
With that being said, we really appreciate y'all coming and listening to this rather lengthy episode about mostly our opinions. But again, that's the point of the MedCat podcast is to give you guys, again, the real talk. But, you know, until next time, I'm Brendan. That's Noah. And we'll see you next time.
Have a good weekend, guys.